say before we get into this lecture that human beings are pretty complicated creatures. And so some of the concepts that I'm giving you are principles that I'd like for you to figure out how you can apply to human beings who are very complex. And so it may seem that the concepts that I'm delivering specifically today might be overly simple, but I want you to think about how those simple concepts could apply in some very profound ways in people's lives, all right? So we're going to start talking about those concepts right now. The first concept I'd like to kind of talk about is this concept of self-interest. And self-interest is very simple. It is about what's in it for me. And so when we talk about diversity initiatives, when we talk about, sexual harassment, when we talk about actually moving and changing either the context or the culture, the core question that we have to ask, or the core question we have to answer, particularly when we are in a supervisory role, is, or in a classroom setting, what's in it for me? So why would this be important? And if we can't answer that question, then we have a problem. Because one of the things that we should be able to do is answer such a simple question. And you'll find in classroom settings, you'll find in workplaces that we get bad behaviors from folks when we can't answer this particular question, right? Because we also know that people, if we look at Abraham Maslow's hierarchy, those first two pieces of the hierarchy have a lot to do with the individual. And so the individual is looking for their self-interest. So what that also means is that individuals will be more motivated when their self-interest is on the line. People, which is why, I do a number of workshops, and sometimes people can't afford my full rate. But it is important that people pay something. And the reason that they have to pay something is because their self-interest. If there's no skin in the game, then the likelihood of either honoring or valuing that information decreases. And so it's important that we understand this concept of self-interest. And so people oftentimes want to answer to that question, what's in it for me? And so when we can answer what is in it for them, then we have people on board with us. And so self-interest comes in a spectrum, right? So particularly when we deal with babies are very self-centered, right? They are their self-interest is their primary objective and goal. And most of that is because they're trying to survive, right? So babies cry, they wake up to feed at odd hours of the night. They're not doing that because they're sinister. They're doing that because they're trying to guarantee themselves survival. So their self-interest is very important. And so there's that kind of core narcissistic piece that's actually good for us. So that is because they're trying to survive, right? So babies cry, they wake up to feed at odd hours of the night. They're not doing that because they're sinister. They're doing that because they're trying to guarantee themselves survival. So their self-interest is very important. And so there's that kind of core narcissistic piece that's actually good for us. So we should have a degree of self-interest that is that's important for us to maintain ourselves. So that's a good self-interest. But then we go to the other end where that narcissism goes awry. And what we end up saying is that my self-interest, what's important to me, is more important than anything else. That I am the center of the universe. Invictus, convict me, I am God. Well, that becomes problematic because we start realizing that the self-interest, if I do it purely for me, I'm going to run into some problems because I need other people to help me. And when that self-interest has gone awry, people become users and abusers of other people. They use people just to get something done or just to get something for themselves, which if we look at the behaviors of a baby and we look at the behaviors of those con artists, those manipulators, those kind of codependent people, that those folks are actually doing the same things that babies are doing, but their motivations are a whole lot different. And so when we're stuck or so concentrated on the self-interest stuff that we don't recognize the needs and the wants of other people, then that is what actually becomes problematic. And so self-interest is good until it goes awry and you place yourself at the center of the universe without regard for anyone else or any other thing in the universe. So there's that. The second concept that I want to talk a little bit about is the social interest concept. And social interest says, what is good for the group? So I will do things. I will engage in processes and engage in groups that are designed to help the community at large, and ultimately help humanity adapt and grow to our ever-changing environment. And so social interest becomes very important. Now, social interest also comes on a spectrum where, and on one spectrum, I want to engage with folks in a community. So I'll pay taxes. I will vote. I participate in the election process. I will walk on the right side of the hallway so that people can pass on the left. Those are some things we do here in the West, particularly in the United States. So that's the good social interest. The bad social interest comes in where I am being asked to sacrifice myself for the good of the group. And so, some groups will sometimes ask for money that you don't necessarily have, but this is good for the group, so give it up for the group. Or everybody else is doing this, so go ahead and do that. And in some extreme cases, people actually ask people to become martyrs for the cause of social interest. That it is in the best interest that you sacrifice yourself so that the rest of us can be can live and be free. And what I'd like to suggest is that the social interest is extremely important, but it also has to be within its own context. It has to be doled out and monitored in such a way that we make sure that there's a good balance between self-interest and social interests.